Ladies and gentlemen, dear esteemed viewers of the Youth Roundtable, welcome to yet another edition of the discussion we have weekly. Today, I have a panel of distinguished gentlemen and a lady. So, the topic of discussion today is something that breaks the norm. We are not going to talk politics all day. So today, we decided to talk something rather different, and that is going to take us to the realm of sports. Sports is something that we've all probably heard of, we've all interacted with. At some point, we're probably all sportsmen and sportswomen. And how that story ended, well, that's a story that we all know within us. So what I want us to discuss today is sports in all those aspects. How does sports influence a society? How can sports help the youth in Uganda? Is it an alternative form of employment? Is it the oil that government can mine and get a lot of money out of, as other countries have done? So that's what we're going to discuss today. And without further ado, allow me have my panelists introducing themselves, starting with our regular and in-house panelist, Mr. Kidega.
Thank you very much, comrade moderator. My name, once again, is Kidega Moses. I'm the Secretary for Labor and Works of the National Youth Council of Uganda. I also take this opportunity to congratulate you, sir, upon becoming a fresh daddy.
You were not supposed to.
Godwin, we heard that his beloved wife gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. So, as the Civic TV, we congratulate you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lakisa?
I'm very honored to be here today. My name is Mercy Lakisa, or well, some would say you add the title doctor, but I'm not too into adding the title. I work as a dental surgeon at Pan Dental Surgery, and I'm also a member of the National Youth Council representing the female youth of Aleptong district.
Sports?
Oh, currently I am part of a students committee for Federation of International University Sports, and I play cricket. I played cricket, I think, from the time I was a little girl, and not because of the COVID thing, but that's the game I love. It's the game I play.
Okay. Ivan.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Ivan Magomu. I'm a lawyer by profession. I play rugby. I'm the captain for the Uganda Rugby Cranes and Black Pirates Rugby Football Club. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you for the panelists that have just introduced themselves. My name is Godwin Toko once again. So, when I was a kid, I tried to play football at St. Francis Primary School in Tinda, and that went horribly wrong. But apparently I was short, I was not fast enough, and once someone knocked me off the pitch, I injured my hand, an injury that I possess up to this day, mind you, and that was the end for me with sports. But somewhere in P3, P4, I think it was Blue Band that organized a race. They called it the Junior Bikers Race that brought together all the schools in Kampala. Now, because my father had bought for me a bike when I was a kid, I participated in that. And I was really good. I represented my school at Nambole. That was where the national competition was held. We emerged number 5 in a list of about 100 schools. But I was there more as a substitute, as a backup for the one that eventually did the riding. And that pretty much for me was it with sports. The second time I tried, I had an auntie that stayed in those Naguru quarters that were demolished. So I would go there and we'd play Jilui and all these other, it's called Rondo, where you kick the ball and someone tries to pick it from you.
Yes.
Try to play all those. But generally sports didn't work out for me. I know that very many Ugandan young people have tried some sport at one point in amateur leagues, playing here and there for fun and all. But you know that there are people earning from sports. They're earning big money. The money Ronaldo or Messi earns in a week is a lot of money. If they gave it to our government every week, our government would be pleased. Perhaps it wouldn't even get Chinese loans and wouldn't have the discussion about Entebbe Airport and whatever may before it. So we're looking at sports now today. And I want to get the view of our panelists, starting with Comrade Kidega. Have you ever played sports at some point? Have you ever thought of playing sports? Maybe you're saying that when I retire, I'll eventually go into golf and do something big. So how is it for you? And for the other two panelists who are sports personalities, I want to know from them, did you try some other sports discipline? Did you start? How did that go? What drove you to the current sport you're doing? So in that order.
Thank you very much, comrade moderator, once again. To the viewers, good afternoon. Well, just to answer your question directly, yes, I have definitely tried to play some sports. When I was growing up as a young boy, I tried to play football until a point when I couldn't balance between football and other prior needs at the time, like my academics. So I found myself having to give up my special talent in football for my academics. But well, let me just draw some historical perspective into this conversation. I think that yes, sports, just like any arena, has a very strong history. Let me start by describing the history of, for example, marathon. That in the 6th century, in the Peloponnesian War, we had a battlefield soldier who ran from the city of Marathon in Greece, ran 25 miles to go and report or to go and declare the defeat of the Persians in the war.
Okay.
So, and that was the genesis of marathon, for example. And equally, football, it has had its own, history and it has evolved over time. So personally, I drew my inspiration to play football from the history that I got to know about football.
Okay.
Because growing up as a young child, I had the opportunity to read about Italy and got to appreciate how their football had evolved over time. That, for example, in the early days of football in Italy, the sport itself was reserved for the high-class people in society. We had the popes, for example, Pope Leonard and Pope Clement used to play football in Vatican City. But also, I think that over time, sports has continuously changed and it has evolved. And I look forward to us discussing more of the present sports and its challenges compared to its history. But yes, I have played sports and I continue to love sports.
Okay. Lakisa?
Well, mine is quite interesting. I think I was in primary 7, and given my leadership background and roles, usually, as a leader, if you don't have a team, you have to make sure that you're ideally first on every team that you're going to present. So I remember very well, it was athletics. It was the very first sport I tried to venture into, and it was horrible. I was the last. When people go for like 5 laps, everyone finishes and you have an entire lap to go alone. So from that day, I said, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can, this is it for me.
Humiliation.
Thank you. I was very humiliated. And then when I got to senior 1, my dormitory prefect, the inter-house competitions, she came to me and she said, we need people to run. And I told her, the last time I tried running, I was the last. I don't think I can do this. She was like, no, you're from the north. Everyone from the north can run. And I said, I don't think it works like that. But oh well, I always have this attitude of, when I have an opportunity to do something, I usually get into it, do it, and then the after results will know from there. Okay. I went in for the race. It was horrible the first time, the first year. But trust me, the next years, I think my OGs can bear me witness that the next 5 years in high school, I was among the top athletes in the long distance. But then now cricket, still in senior 1. So someone walks they were trying to recruit a team, and they walk in and they're like, who wants to train? Like, who wants to learn the game cricket? It was my first time to hear of such a game. I only knew soccer and netball, from my background. And I was like, what's that? Okay, I'll be in the field in the evening. I found myself in the field. Okay, the balls are hard. We're throwing to each other. Okay, tomorrow I'll come back. And it started being interesting and more fun. I'm like, okay, this is unique. So then that very year, actually, was the first time they did we had an international tournament. Okay. That was an East African tournament, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And they were constituting an under-15 team. And so they called schools for a camp to do training and select a team. I didn't know that was going to be like a turning point in my life to actually really love the sport more. And they asked, who wants to train how to to be a wicket keeper? I'm like, okay, let me train. And I didn't know that was still going to earn me like an automatic slot on like the under 15 team and thereafter the under 19 team. So I grew to love the sport more and more, to appreciate it more. And Yeah, I love it. I love cricket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ivan?
Basically, I'm from a sporting family.
Okay.
Um, I was born and raised in Mbale. There's a famous team called Mbale Heroes.
Yes.
Yeah, supported it ever since I was a young chap. So my father was the team manager of Mbale Heroes.
Okay.
So most of the times we'd go to the games, would carry
Together.
me along. So back then they had a youth setup. I can say a children's setup. It was called Young Heroes. So I'd go, train with the chaps, and that was my first sport I fell in love with.
That is
Football.
football still.
Yes. Go through the primary level, I think around P5. Uh, P5.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a young chap. We had, opening training sessions, and we're called for trials. So young chap steps up. They ask me, what number do you play? I'm a striker. They're like, but you're a small chap, you're short. And then I'm like, no, just give me
The ball.
an opportunity to prove you wrong. So yeah, we train. Then we had a tournament coming up. The tournament comes up. I remember it was the post primaries. Now it's the Coca-Cola. Yeah, we're playing, and I was on bench. Young chap, the coach had undermined me and stuff like that. I come on the 80th minute, 85th minute, and I score both goals, and we're going to win the match.
Wow.
So yeah, originally I've been a footballer. I still play football to date, but my conversion to rugby actually came when I joined SMAC.
Okay.
Yeah, 2008.
Okay.
SMAC is literally a rugby playing school.
Okay.
So when you join in senior one, you're taught the basics of rugby. And why I stopped playing football is this one time we had a tournament in Ginger. I remember very well.
That's at SMAC.
That's at SMAC. We were going to Ginger. It was, I think, under 15. So on VD, my dad comes. I tell him, Dad, we have a tournament coming up. And he was happy for me like any other father.
Okay.
So on the last day, he says, I'll bring you new boots, new shin guards, and everything. Because, he believed in me. He knew I'd make the team. But sadly, I never made the team. Why? The coach at the time decided to bring in something where SMAC is called Cubans. But Cuba, those expatriates, they bring in, give you IDs. And I was dropped.
Okay.
So on the last day, my dad finds me crying and is like, boss, what up?
What happened?
I thought you were going to Ginger. And, to cut the story short, it was a long journey back to Mbale. And when I came back the following term, I said, you know what?
Let me go
To hell with football. I've learned some basics in rugby. And the rugby patron appreciates me. And yeah, that's how I started playing rugby and kept on getting better and better to date.
Okay. Those are very interesting stories from all of you. So I'll pick it again from Ivan. Ivan, throughout the time you played rugby and participated in sports, you from SMAC, you were at law school and still playing for Uganda and your club, even at LDC. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you balance? How does a young person out there balance the academics and sports? Where do they strike the balance? When do they know that it's now time for sports? It's now time for this. And from your own experience.
From my own experience, one, honestly, there's no formula to that.
Okay.
I would say I had my challenges, especially at uni, but the background setting, through primary school to high school, if you go to SMAC or Namiriango, you don't have to, you're not forced to go and read.
Okay.
I can give an example, Chitende, Namugongo, Seta, you're literally pushed to go and read.
Unlike SMAC.
Unlike these schools. The motto in Naminyango was education for responsibility. You can chill the whole term, but when it comes to time for business, you have to put in the work. So yeah, I think that background really helped me. In school we'd play a lot of, rugby, week in, week out. But when it came to the promotion exams and stuff, I would actually get serious and, get to read and make sure you perform.
Okay.
This, personally, I had a lot to, protect. I was an idol to very many kids, so you had to represent both in class and on pitch. Yes. So, but to break it down into simpler terms to the younger chaps, it's all about dedication, discipline, and hard work.
Okay.
If you're putting in time to play the sport, how much time are you sacrificing, away from the sports?
True.
To put into, the work, like the academics.
Okay.
Personally, I know myself. I want to work, long term, start reading from the start of the semester to the end. Okay, I'll give myself, let me say, a month to the exams, and then we usually had a cheat code name with some of my peers way back from high school.
Okay.
And there's this, we used to call it buges. We have to make it to buges. If you to remember the Kavaka strikes, the Kavaka stopped from going to Bugere. So we used to say we have to cross the bridge.
And get the other side.
How do we do it? Put in more time. You have 2 hours of sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night
And do some
and
reading.
read. During the day, you're recovering, you're not reading. People think you're joking, but you're putting in the work. And yeah, that's how I've managed to make it this far. So my advice to the young chaps is, yes, it is very achievable. It is really hard, but you can do it.
Okay.
And you can do both the academics and the sports, but you have to find a balance in between to make both things work.
Okay. Thank you. Lakisa, you are in a very awkward spot, if I'm to use that phrase, for a lady. We know that Uganda has a very formidable netball team. They've gone around the world. They've won us trophies. They've done this. When I was growing up, it was known that boys play football, girls play netball. Yeah? So when you break the ranks and say, I'm going to play something as awkward, in quotes, something as different as cricket. Yeah? How do you relate that with society? When you're talking to people, yeah, in your daily life, and you're like, I'm a woman, but I play cricket. How do they perceive it? And then the final part of the question is, to the young girls out there who are probably watching us today, are there such things as limitations? Are there things that girls can't do when it comes to sports? Can a girl probably play rugby? Because we see Magomu is mugged, you understand, and all that. So do girls need that kind of physique? Is it more about the determination and discipline, like you're saying, and maybe just from your lady's perspective, you could iron out into that?
Well, I must say, even to my family members, when I say I play cricket, and my friends. So I've kind of had to have friends, my close friends in the field of medicine are not my friends in the field of cricket. They don't even watch my games because they don't understand what it is. But for me, they call it the gentleman's game. And to me, it felt like this is different. I always strive. I want to be different. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. Everyone wants to go and kick the ball and play soccer. But how about I tap into something that's different, something that's, that's unique, that makes you stand out. However, when you learn to appreciate something, and then the people around you with time also tend to appreciate. Because I got to a point where my friends were like, okay, fine, you represented Uganda, we want to come and watch you. But then they'll just come and sit and just be there the whole day. They don't know what you're doing. And the other thing goes back really to interest. If you are really focused and you want to pick an interest in something and your purpose that you want to learn something, you will learn it. That's a principle in life. And when you talk about limitations for women having the physique, in high school, I was actually really fat. Okay, not really fat, but I was bigger than I am now. And people used to ask me a lot, how do you run a marathon and you're number 3 with your size? Look at the tiny ones there. How do you do it? And for me, it wasn't about the size. It was about knowing the sport. I knew that in a marathon, if I'm going for this, I don't need to run at, I don't know what speed for me to be the first. I know that in the first 1 hour or first 30 minutes, I'm putting my energy in this. So it's about the skill. You bring in your brain to the game. I recently watched I recently was in Nairobi watching Africa competitions for basketball, university sports. And Ndeje, we know Ndeje University has really been up there in terms of sports. Yes. So there was a team, Ndeje and UCU. So UCU had really short boys. The Ndeje boys looked like they were actually just there next to the basket. I'm like, how, like, ideally everyone was like, Ndeje is going to take this. So UCU had this really short boy, really short, like half of the height of the other boys. Yeah. And I watched him play from the beginning to the end of their game. I think it's called baskets. He scored more baskets.
Yeah, in basketball,
yes.
basket.
I think he scored more baskets than anyone else in that tournament.
The short.
Very short, shorter than you, Toko.
Yeah. That means I'm actually very short.
You're very short.
In other words.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's sport, just like Magomu plays rugby. I'm sure he has guys who are really
smaller than me.
Yes, smaller than him.
And also bigger, yeah.
And bigger.
Sizes, yes.
But and also in sports, there are like different disciplines within what you play, different positions. You master what you are best at. Yeah. You perfect it. You know that when you give me that ball in this position, I am going to give you what you want. Okay. So that brings me to the point of teamwork in sports. You cannot do it alone. Okay? There has to be someone who is good at making that pass, and then someone who is good at scoring. And then when it comes to playing, you accept that, you know what, they can do this better than me. Let them take it on. For the females out there, self-confidence is what you need, and self-esteem. You need to, first of all, build that confidence in you, that you can make the best out of yourself, regardless of what is surrounding you. Of course, as women, we have very many challenges compared to the males that compel us to usually stay back. But you need to know that the women out there who have made it, women who have broken the barriers and, you know, are shining out there, how do they do it? What's so different about them that you don't have? At the end of the day, it gets back to what you have in your head and what you have in your mind. You know, it's like a mental state of accepting that, you know what, I can do anything within my means. So once you perceive that, that's the secret for me, and that's what I can tell any woman out there.
Okay. Let's move to Comrade Kidega. Comrade Kidega, you join us from the National Youth Council, which I love to say has structures up to the almost the family. You're one of the most represented entities in the country. So you move, you interact with these various branches of yours. When you interact with them, do you get the vibe that people are interested in sports at the grassroots there, the young people? Do you see any future, if I'm to use that, for Uganda sports, if the supply for Uganda sports has to come from down? Just for context, I was in Kapchorwa in September. And when I was in Kapchorwa, Kapchorwa is extremely cold. So because I have issues with sinuses and all that, I would normally sleep much early and then wake up very early. So when I would wake up, I would see so many people jogging. So I engaged some locals in a conversation and said, it has not always been like this. But when Cheptegei won, when Chiplimo won, when they see these people winning, and for them they say that they were the same with the Kenyans. When they also watch these Kenyans winning on TV, they're like, oh, perhaps I'm the next. So children as young as 12 would wake up in the morning and they were on their heels, trying to run and to better themselves. So is that what you see across the country? I mean, I have to confess that I'm not as traveled as you are with all those structures that you guys have.
Well, Comrade Godwin, I'm sure by now you appreciate that I have a communist orientation, and I believe so much in family as the nexus for any community development, or for any society to transform itself. We must begin from the grassroots. Let me start by saying that sports is such a powerful tool. It has been used by so many people to achieve so many things. Let me go back to history. When the city of Florence in Italy was sieged by Prince Charles, the people of the city of Florence organized a march to protest against this kind of imperial rule and protest against the deployment of these troops in their city. Okay? Sports has equally been used to express gratitude and pleasure to so many people who you believe deserve the same. And for example, you recall that when King Henry visited Italy still, the people of Italy organized a march still to demonstrate to him how much they loved and the gratitude they were trying to express to him. But of course, sports being sports, it gets emotional and gets so intense. And the most ironic thing that happened in this particular visit was that King Henry eventually said that football is too cruel to be seen as a mere game, but also it is not too intense to be declared as a war. So there was need to develop rules and regulations to guide the game. Otherwise, with what he had seen, people were, getting furious and they were fighting and all those things. But drawing it back to the Ugandan context, if you look at the orientation of the communist or the socialist ideas, the belief is that government must take center stage in terms of uplifting its people, in terms of developing infrastructure to support the people, in terms of creating an enabling environment to support people who are in sports, entrepreneurship, among other things. So I think that the government has not given close attention to sports in this country. And even when the people in Karamoja or Kapchora would have loved to participate in sports, there is not so much support coming in from the government to inspire them or to encourage them to see these sports as a tangible, a source of livelihood. And all this goes back to our society orientation. We believe we have been so much influenced by the formal way of doing things, in that we believe that for us to earn a living or to make money, we must go through the formal education sector, the formal education systems, and that is where all of us are stuck into. Sports, growing up, sports and music and the creative industry was really seen as an avenue for failures. Yeah, take it or leave it. If you began singing in your early high school or in your early teenage years, they'll see you as a failure. Okay? But if you look at the likes of Rashford, those guys have never stepped class. Okay? They were simply born and taken straight to the academies to play football. But it's simply because the governments there created an enabling environment. They set up stadiums where these children can go and practice how to play football.
Can I
was
just
development, that was
can I just step into
yeah.
there? So Uganda has a few sports academies. Yeah, I mean the sport that I know best is football.
Yeah.
So let's say Uganda has a few football academies. You've heard of Kampala Kids League sometime back. I don't know what happened to that. You've heard of Edgar's Kids League, something like that. And when you talk about the schooling system, while we don't have the academies as prominently as the UK does have, some kids are actually spotted through these schools. Yeah, a chap is playing so well in primary. A high school says, "Oh, we need that chap." They pick him up, and if that high school happens to be Chitende, then he could end up like Shaban Muhammad, who then goes and plays local football, say now Duparaka in Vipers in Algeria and all that. So maybe we have an alternative system. Are you saying that it's not working enough? Are you saying there's a way we can make it better? So just so you bring it into the Ugandan context, like as of today, we're not going to build academies tomorrow or in the next 10 years perhaps. How can we use what we have optimally to achieve similar results?
Yeah, like you've already observed that most of these academies are private. Edgar is a private entity. You look at the Kids League, we are all private set-up institutions. My argument is that government needs to take center stage in terms of creating an enabling environment to support sports.
Okay.
I don't know how many government set-up academies we have in this country that are set up specifically to nurture sports, be it cricket, be it football, be it rugby, whatever it is. Okay. You can barely mention them. What government attempted to do was to have PE, the physical education. Yeah, where every evening after you've studied your AST, they will take you out. But that was not sustainable because it was a fitness training and not directed towards nurturing talent. So I think really we have had a void in terms of government taking center stage in creating an enabling environment for its people to partake of this very lucrative venture. But also, I think that the structuring of the sports in this country is very wrong. Because in all honesty, why put sports under the Ministry of Education? The Ministry of Education is such a busy and congested sector of any country. Okay? Because we all know that Mandela said that if you want to, raise a nation, educate the people. Okay? If you want to build a nation, educate the people. So countries worldwide invest so much time and resources in education. So having sports under education creates the perception that, well, it's being funded, because I think education
gets a huge
budget. So the assumption is that even sports is
part of
benefiting from that big budget. Yet in actual sense, it's not. The money is going to the education sector, and the sport is being ignored. So I think there is need to restructure and create an independent sports ministry if we are to really address the concerns of sportsmen and sportswomen in this country.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get back to Lakisa. Lakisa, employment and sports. Uganda has a very, very big problem with unemployment. Yeah? In fact, someone said that so many young people will call themselves employed and yet they're actually not employed. Either because they've started something simple, selling necklaces, support my hustle, or because they're actually underemployed. Yeah? You're a lawyer, but you're employed somewhere where you're doing basic work, you're photocopying, you're stapling papers. So how can sports, for instance, be used by a country like Uganda to ensure that the very many youths who are very energetic, who probably have the talent, but it has not been found or tapped, and then becomes an alternative source of employment?
When you talk about employment in sports, first line would be, professional athletes like Ivan here. I'm sure they have like a monthly stipend to all the national team players, and I think it's the same for any other national team in this country. But that's one form of being employed. An avenue where you're actually a professional athlete and you are being employed for that. But now when you look at different federations, we also have employment opportunities within, because these are bodies. When you look at FUFA, it's like, an entire entity that actually employs people, okay? But now the question would be, the only sad bit is that when you talk about youth, probably they'll think, okay, I need Mercy on board when we're having an activity, come and volunteer, be in charge of the other team, be a liaison officer for the other team. How about you incorporate them into this management, okay? Well, you have different departments within your federation, but what's the percentage of youth that you're actually bringing on board to learn this? Because today, 10 years down the road, you'll probably not be doing that sport, or you won't be in that federation. Who are you grooming, even in the field of sport? So that's something about mentorship, to carry on from where you are. If tomorrow you die, let's say, I don't want to quote names here, but when you talk about football, there are people whose names are really, out there. And then you ask yourself, if tomorrow he went, what would that federation be? And the other entity that we could tap into as a country is actually hosting some of these international events. Unfortunately, for you to host an international event, you ought to have facilities.
Infrastructure.
When you talk about infrastructure in the field of sports in Uganda, what if I ask you how many indoor stadiums do we have? Probably point at the MTN. Thank you. And when you go in there, okay, what's the structure like? Is it world class, where if I said I'm organizing a world event, we actually can host these people? Because there are baselines they consider for you to host. We recently, that's like 2018, Uganda, Makerere University hosted the World Netball Championships, the FISU Netball Championships. It was through the initiative. They did the bidding and actually won. So yes, they were qualified. So government came in to help, and you saw the structure that is being put up as an alternative indoor stadium. And the thing is, if this structure is actually, it's been I think now 2 years down the road. If this structure, it's not complete and it's not functional. But if government, this is something I thought that government actually would really spend like 6 months to make sure that it's fully complete, because the opportunities would have coming with that. Now, I don't want to talk about just that, but let's talk about other fields in sports. What the government probably is not very pro facility development, and that's the best. Yes, you're going to train athletes, but then are we always going to go out to go and play from other countries? When you talk about hosting an event, now you're creating job opportunities for your people, for your young people, because it comes. I've personally been in lots of these events that are hosted and been employed. Well, they are short term, but some of these actually carry on and end up being long term. So this could be an alternative for our government to actually bring in the young people on board. Let's look into infrastructure development, and maybe we talk about also like some of the policies in terms of employment. If we're talking about a federation, why don't you have maybe, yes, a quota probably. Okay, if I'm talking about women, they're saying women should be a quota in every organization. But how about we bring in the aspect of having the youth on board also? Because, he said it's not just about educating the nation, but now what's the future of Uganda as a country? The future of Uganda as a country is actually in the youth, in the young people. So if we're not investing in them and also investing in having them actually have the skills to carry on what has been built, then we are probably headed nowhere.
Okay. You agreed with her on the point of infrastructure.
Yes.
So
To
I just
add
want
on to that,
yeah, you want to add to that.
the easiest, actually, the best example would be the Uganda Cranes, the footballing team.
Yes.
We failed to host our games at Nambole and have to go and rent
A private
a private facility in Chitende. It says a lot.
If we didn't have that facility,
Where would we be now? We'd be
Wouldn't
going
host.
to Kenya.
Yeah.
but
You know?
there seems to be, the government said it was going to build a high altitude training area in Kapchorwa. Yeah, and when I was there, people were saying, well, there's some work being done. It's not complete, but they seemed very optimistic. And now we've seen also, is it called Aita? Jeff Aita. Is it called Jeffrey Aita? The one of Arua who is building that sports complex as you enter Arua town. So does that give us a ray of hope that maybe in future things will get better?
Those are, I think, most are private initiatives,
Yeah.
private sector initiatives.
Yes.
So you want governments.
Government must
government,
take
yes.
center stage in doing
I
some of
think-
these things.
So we are going to take a break. That is going to mark the end of our first session, and then we shall come back and continue. We shall look at things now like COVID and sports, the depression, the stress, yeah? And people will say that sports can be therapy. Sports can help people heal. We're going to look at the unity. Sports has united some countries. We're going to look at regionally. If you have Tanzanian teams playing at the level they are playing, and yet Uganda seems to be lagging. I mean, if I'm talking about, for instance, sports, football, or like rugby, Kenya going all over the country, all over the places, and Uganda seems here. We are in DRC, which Ugandans on social media are calling a failed state, but they have such a beautiful club like TP Mazembe, which is a continental champion. It's doing a lot around the world. So I want us to look at it now from those perspectives, but after this break. So let me see you all after the break. We continue the discussion. Welcome back, dear esteemed viewers of Civic Space TV. This is the final edition of today's discussion on sports. My panel that I introduced earlier is still here with us, and they are going to share more insights onto the aspect of sports and how it has impacted on their lives and how much it can impact the country and the kind of things it can play. So without wasting more time, let me go to Magomu. Magomu, today in history, the Pearl Harbor was bombed by Japanese. They are called, I forget the particular word they use for them, but Japanese aeroplanes, and that drove America into the Second World War. But we know one of the most interesting aspects of the Second World War is that as it was raging on, once there was an agreement between German and British soldiers that let's first put down our arms and go and play football on a particular day, which was 25th December. So they played football on a Christmas. Yeah. So that shows you just how much sports can unite divided people. That just brings in how sports can heal broken spirits. Yeah. When people are fighting, they consider themselves most times as monsters.
Yes.
But because of football, they said, okay, let's first put this inside. We play football. We can go back to killing each other much later.
Yes.
Now, Uganda is divided. Uganda is a country where you hear talks of Nile Republic, a group that wants to secede. You've had talks of Uganda saying, we want to leave this entity. You've had the president accusing people of Uganda of voting along ethnic lines.
Yes.
People write shirts, wear t-shirts that say, I am 99% Anacholi and 1% Ugandan. So now, when you have sports, a tool called sports in your toolbox, how do you use this tool to unite and heal such a broken and divided nation, politically, socially, in terms of religion, in terms of everything, as Uganda is?
Sport has the ability, to change a nation, to unite a nation.
Okay.
The best example can be, derived from Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, through the difficulties of apartheid, through the difficulties that the blacks were going through.
Okay.
During the apartheid, it's the sport that kept them going. It's the soccer that kept them going. The black community. You give examples of clubs like Orlando Pirates,
Yeah.
Kaiser Chiefs,
Mm.
Morocco Swallows.
Mm.
These were actually, clubs, football clubs owned by blacks. Actually, football was a black sport.
In South
Rugby
Africa.
was, in South Africa, was a white man's sport.
Mm.
So the football helped unite the black guys. However much they were going through during the apartheid, it's the football where they would go, and release their stress, cheer on their people, and, get the dawn going. Now, when Mandela took over, when Mandela became president, there's a Rugby World Cup going on in South Africa, 1995. White-dominated sport. He goes into, the final. He attends the final. And actually, that year, South Africa won both the World Cup and the Africa Cup of Nations. Yes. So this actually united the country.
At that time, okay, South Africa was fighting.
They were still fighting. Now you see,
lines.
yes, Mandela had just come in. They're still,
the Zulu,
Transvaal, I don't know what they want to secede, like you're saying, but they managed. After those happening, they were able to unite. Another example can be, we can derive it from Ivory Coast. Yeah, they had. Thank you. They had rebels, fighting, but Drogba, being the icon that he is, said, you know what? It is our last game qualification for World Cup. We are hosting it from the rebel stronghold.
Yes.
They go play, and the rebel guys are like, but why are we killing each other? Can actually be united and
come together as a country.
Yes, come together as a country, and they lay down their arms, and Ivory Coast is now doing much, much better. Yeah, in the context of Uganda, I think, like Nelson Mandela said, it has the ability. You watch, when Uganda is going to play, like say the rugby cranes are going to play, the football cranes are going to play. No one will want to know whether you belong to NUP or DP. We shall all go
as Ugandans,
and cheer on for our guys.
Okay.
So there's nothing that, how can I put it? I agree with you. Sport has the ability to unite Ugandans. It makes you forget all the tribal, differences. It makes you forget the party differences, and it's actually able to bring us together. If Uganda wins, we all celebrate. If we qualify for Africa Cup of Nations, every Ugandan will celebrate. If Cheptegei or Kiplimo wins, we all celebrate. You find, Bobby Wine coming out to congratulate the winners. You find the president coming out to different parties. So, I believe it can actually unite us as a nation, the sports.
Okay. So you brought in the aspect of the sports and the politics around sports. Lakisa, you know that Nelson Mandela was a boxer, an amateur boxer.
Yes.
Yeah. We've seen very prominent political figures, in fact, sports figures playing into the realm of politics. The Premier League game I watched yesterday, where Arsenal was walloped badly by Everton, it had the players, as is now the norm in the Premier League, taking the knee before the game started. But know that was started by Colin Kaepernick, the American football player.
Yes.
Yeah, and now it is like the normal thing in the world. We saw Biden taking a knee. So Uganda's youth seem to be not so much included in politics. Yeah, they seem so much dissatisfied from some angles. When you look at them from some angles. So is it time that Ugandan youths themselves used sports as a means as a conduit to push out their voice there, to perhaps demand for a better country, to perhaps demand for more unity and things of the sort, in your own opinion?
Well, in addition to what my comrade here, Ivan, already talked about sports, one thing for sure, it's a tool. When you talk about youth pushing for things in the country or pushing for development as a country,
through sport,
there has to be a lot of social change because we're dealing with lots of challenges in the societies even before we come out of them. And sport itself as a tool of bringing about social change in our communities. And I think I witnessed, you talked about having sports figures now going into the into the politics. Now, one thing I've appreciated through the years is that if I need to penetrate a community, and you've seen it, you can go to my district, Aleptong, and find a center, and there's one big TV. I'm not saying we have only one big TV in Aleptong. And there's one big TV, and you know there's like a huge number of people just watching soccer. People don't even know what they're watching, but some are just watching because others are watching. Okay, so that itself in a community, it's like it's like a magnet that brings you together. And when you have people together, they're sharing so many different ideas.
True.
Yeah, it's not just that we come to sports, or I might meet Magomu like, oh, okay, boss, what's up? We have just met, and you know, you start discussing so many things. You start picking on from there. Okay. Now, when you talk about youth, in my own opinion, and as an individual, we need to really tap into what sports can bring to the table.
All right.
Okay, in terms of how we can change some of these mindsets in the community, and given that it's been proven over time that it's that one unifying factor that we have. The only other thing is that unless, as a country, we actually acknowledge that sports has a lot to bring to the table. If we do not acknowledge that, we will just be moving around the tables and, you know, going about the same sports, and actually not tapping into what it has to offer. So my appeal would ideally be to the government. Well, if the government is not willing to come on board, then maybe the youth, okay? And I mean, we have other well-wishers who are actually pro some of these things, okay? How can we then break out of the shells and say, you know what, let us tap into this and cause this change that we need in our society? So I am really actually looking forward in the near future to tap into some of that. And hopefully that the youth can also see as I see, and we tap into that entity.
Okay, Kidega, COVID and sports. It said that because of COVID, people lost people. People were restricted in movement. Children were forced. In fact, in Uganda, they are still forced to stay home. They're not going to school. Is COVID a wasted opportunity for us as far as sports is concerned? Do you think, like some people have argued, that because of COVID, the government had an incentive that now, if kids are going home, let's ensure they participate in sports? Because sports also leads to development of a young child in a different way, because it unites people, and because if they stayed home, and instead of getting abused by parents and older people, were participating in sports somewhere, they could have escaped that kind of, they could have escaped all the mayhem that comes with the abuses they faced, and instead participated in sports. So do you take the view that through COVID gave us a good opportunity that the government has not taken as far as sports is concerned, especially bearing in mind the effect that COVID has had on mental health, the stresses and things like that?
Thank you, comrade moderator. First and foremost, let me start by saying that Africa is a very blessed continent. If you look at the French team that won the most recent World Cup,
yes,
it was filled with blacks. Okay?
Mm.
And the Western world realized the power of sports. And that's why, for as long as they can identify with you as a talented sportsman, be it football, be it basketball, they will easily grant you citizenship. You look at the LeBron Jameses and all those black guys who are playing it, be it basketball, be it football, among his other sports. So that means that there is a lot of financial gain that comes with developing the talent of people and nurturing the talent of any given society. Let's look at, for example, Rwanda. Rwanda is investing so much money in Arsenal and PSG with the Visit Rwanda campaign.
Yes.
And I can assure you that I was reading their foreign direct investment and their foreign exchange of Rwanda as a country. It has greatly improved ever since they began to invest money in PSG and in Arsenal, because they have been able to attract more tourists to come to the country. They've been able to attract more foreign exchange. They've attracted more foreign direct investment in the country, and the country is developing through, sports and through such initiatives. So we can't afford to underlook the strength or the prowess that comes with investing in sports. But to try to relate it to the COVID-19 situation, first and foremost, I think COVID-19 came and offered an opportunity for so many things. We have, of course, discussed the opportunity it gave the health sector to develop infrastructure, amongst other things, but also in terms of sports, because at least from my own personal story, for example, it is during this COVID-19 lockdown that I got time to jog around every evening. Because during the course of the normal schedules, really, it's at times difficult to find maybe time or, to jog and things like that. But because of COVID-19 lockdown, I was able to jog, and who knows, if I had continued, I would probably have identified my talent in whatever thing I was doing. So it definitely offered opportunity for us to do sports. And like you said, the mental health challenges that came with COVID-19, the economic pressure and psychological stress, many people sought sports as an avenue of relieving that kind of stress and being able to interact with people and, try to socialize and relieve that whole burden. But just to cut the long story short, I think, yes, COVID-19 gave us an opportunity to, one, invest in sports, but also to partake of sports at an individual level as well.
Okay, Ivan, football seems to be the sport that this country looks up to. We seem to have one of the worst stats when it comes to football on the continent. We hardly go anywhere. We're already out of World Cup. I don't know. I think we're also out of AFCON. We're not going to participate. Yes. Yet the government seems to be so much interested in football. There's a lot of money put in football. When the football players go out and come back, they meet the president. They are given money. They are given all these favors. Yet other sports, for instance, look at someone like the young man that went and disappeared in quotes in Japan, Sechitoleko. He seems to have a lot of talent. He seems to do a lot of to have a lot of medals in individual sport, but he was nowhere. We didn't even know about him. So is it time? And I'm happy that you're not a football player. Is it time that government shifted and, for instance, looked at other sports disciplines or other sports teams? For instance, the junior Cobs, are they called Cobs? The female team of Uganda football. They are doing exceedingly well. They're gonna beat teams as much as 7-0.
Yes.
Yet there seems not to be investment in them. All we look at is the crane, the senior national team.
Yes.
You get that same feeling?
Yeah, I get the same feeling. But this is all, it happens because, the government looks at short term. Yes, Uganda, let's say it gets to qualify for AFCON, and they're rewarded with a lot of money. But they don't look at the hard work, that's being put on. Personally, I would think what the government needs to do is to invest in the grassroots. Like, the grassroots level, from develop the young talent, they come through the age grade system, under 15, under 17, under 20 to the national team. I don't see why the government actually spends, I don't know how many billions for Uganda cranes to go and train in Dubai.
Yes.
And then they come back and they're not,
anywhere better.
there are no results. Put that money in the grassroots. Develop the young talent. Keep a team together, and you send them to academies out there. You get a talented 17-year-old, as Uganda, as the government, you enter into an agreement with a club. It doesn't have to be Arsenal. It just needs to be a professional club outside there, where you send the talent, they go, benefit from the resources, and then come back and play for us.
Okay.
But going forward, I think, a lot of favors are given to the football side. Yet we have the netball, the ladies.
I think they have to plead for a bus.
Thank you. They are ranked, I think, 6th in the whole world. They've played at the World Cup, Commonwealth Games. They do us proud. We also have the rugby cranes. We played at the World Cup in 2019. We played at the Commonwealth Games in same year, I think. But we've never been appreciated by the government. All they do is look at the footballers only. Look at the basketballers. They've got the talent, but all the resources,
they're called the silverbacks. They always cry for money. We've not
all the resources are just going to the football. So, like you said, I highly believe some of the money should be channeled. It should be actually equal. Invest in the soccer guys, invest in the rugby guys, invest in the netball ladies, invest in the silverbacks. There's also the cricket guys. They're doing amazing, but the funding is lacking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the government, I believe, football is very popular, but it also needs to tap into other sports that will make the country, shine outside there and, get recognized.
Okay.
A clear example Kenya, they are known for athletics, they are known for rugby, you know, because they've decided to, you know,
Diversify.
put resources in other sports. I think we should borrow a leaf from our neighboring country, because we have the talent here. I tell you, we go play Kenya, but they'll not beat us because they're more talented. They'll beat us because, one, they had better preparations.
Yes.
Their government actually funds them way, way better than some of us. So, you know, they just beat us because of that slight edge. So I think we should borrow a leaf at the Ugandan government to actually diversify in these other sports. You can never know, we could become, you know, the world #1 in athletics. Uganda can be known for, you know, producing better
Long
athletes
distance
than even Kenya. We've proven that with the minimal resources that we have as Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lakisa, regionally, Magomu has brought in the regional aspect. Regionally, you look at Kenya, they are really doing well as far as rugby is concerned. Yeah, or at least they are doing better in terms of this region. When you look at football, the sport that our government seems obsessed with, Tanzania is doing better. Yeah, those Tanzanian football clubs, Simba, Yanga. They're really up there. When you look at TP Mazembe, it's doing amazing things. Rwanda seems not to have football. There's a video clip where someone shared that Kagame was saying, Rwanda, forget about football, go and do other things. This is not your sport. But we know that this is a matter of investment.
Yes.
Yeah, and Rwanda seems to have investment. They seem to be investing strategically. They hosted an African basketball series not long ago. Yeah, that's where Uganda Cranes went and Uganda Silverbacks went and played. So they seem to be investing. They seem to have smelt the coffee and moving steadily. Uganda seems not so much. It seems to be dragging its feet. In the context of this East African region, yeah, what is holding Uganda behind? Is this a question of policy? Don't we have the right laws in place? Don't we have the right plans in place? Is it a question of those in office? There are photos of President Museveni kicking a ball, I think in the early 2000s. Does he understand the concept of sport? Does he like it? Those in the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Sports, do they have a passion? Or what someone in Uganda would say, Musai gwa sports, do they have it in them? Or do they just think that sports is something that we have to pretend to be supporting because it's the popular thing or the cool thing to do?
That's a tricky one. When you look at our country, and Toko, you'll agree with me, you know, there's so many things you disagree on in Uganda.
Yeah.
But I would take it to a point of focus as a country, and maybe trying to politicize everything in Uganda. When you talk about having a focus as a country, let's say we have a sport that we actually invest in. In the past, the tradition was football, like you said. But now other teams are trying to break those barriers and show that, you know what, if you can actually invest in us, we can actually bring this home, okay? But like I said earlier on, as a country, we haven't, in my opinion, we haven't yet appreciated what sport can do for our nation.
All right.
And until we come to that point, the government will not see the need to invest in the facilities, will not see the need to invest in some of these teams, will not see the need for any of these, okay? How about we look at sport as something that, as a country, probably leave alone putting it on the map or something, but something to also maybe boost our economy as a country, because when you talk about economy, I think that's one of our biggest challenges, okay? So how about we look at it in a different aspect of, if we tap into this, maybe we can actually be at a different level as a country. So for me, it's this country needs to focus, have a focus, and know that sport can bring what they're actually looking for. Yeah, but until we get to that point, I don't think we're headed anywhere. Okay.
Kidega, you talked about the government's less investment in sports. Yeah, they think that they should have invested more. Are you optimistic? Do you have the belief that under the current government, some things can happen, and then the government changes its mind and say, oh, we actually need to invest in sports? Or you've given up and you're saying that, okay, it will in the Uganda and Pia, let's wait for the new Uganda. Maybe that's one where sports will take priority.
First and foremost, I think that many things start and fall with leadership. The moment there is a leadership in place that has a given priority sector or aspires to transform a given sector, then we can begin to witness a country making advancements in that particular sector. When, for example, Magufuli took over as president in Tanzania, his interest was in infrastructure development.
Yes.
And you saw that within the 5 years that he had, Arusha changed by almost 50%. You know, places like Mwanza changed. The infrastructure development was really at its best. So many things begin and fall with leadership. So I agree that maybe our leadership has not taken or picked keen interest in nurturing and building sports as a means of or as an alternative means of economic advancement of the country, and also other advantages that come along with it. But also, I don't want to say that all hopes are lost. I belong to the National Resistance Movement, and we believe that through constant conversations with the leaderships of the party, we believe that we can eventually, put a stumbling block towards achieving this particular aspiration. But also, allow me to make my comment in terms of unity. Earlier on this year, when the media accused UPDF of battering it, the solution that the two parties saw as an avenue to come together was a football match. Okay, and you saw that after that football match, particularly, the kind of UPDF journalist relationship was somehow mended. Okay, so sports really, by and large, beyond anything else, is a very strong point of convergence for unity. Of course, it was, I think, Council Mpanga, who said that we are a country that has lost its DNA. Okay, when floods happened in Kasese, it is a Kasese affair. Okay, when there was a war in northern Uganda, it was an Acholi affair. Okay, when the Kabaka is, I don't know, arrested, it is a Buganda affair. So, yes, as a country, there is some sense of disunity. But through constantly investing in things like sports, I believe we can tackle challenges around disunity of the people, but above all, offer the country an opportunity to harness its natural talent. Today, we are having conversations around, for example, climate change, and we are saying that an alternative for us to address challenges like global warming is that we must invest in renewable energies. These are energies that don't explit, they don't wear out, okay? The sun, the wind, they're there to stay. I think if you invest in something like a talent to me, I think it's something long-lasting, okay? If you invest in education, education is constantly changing, okay? Now we have technology. So people who studied history are becoming more and more obsolete in today's, world politics and world economics. But unlike talent, which will continuously, take center stage in terms of, offering opportunity both at individual but also at country level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, and our time is fast spent, I must say, we are going to get our conclusions. So I'm going to start with you, Kidega. Just make your conclusion in relation to whatever you've said, and then we come Lakisa, and then we shall we shall call it a show.
Yeah. First and foremost, I think that sports as an arena entirely is evolving continuously. In the past, it was done for leisure and social activities. Today, it has become highly commercialized and highly profitable. From being a sport of only the men, and the privileged, to now a sport for even the wananchi, and it is now more socially inclusive for everyone. From it being a sport that is played on the streets to now people constructing multi-million-dollar stadiums and things like that. So it is continuously evolving, and any government that wants to fast-track global development really must continuously invest in sports. The one thing I've disagreed with our government is it's more reactionary, okay? It's now trying to invest in Captura because of what the Kipro teachers and the Cheptegei have tried to do. But I think if next year or in the next competition, we don't get a winner from Captura, I'm sure government might halt that program of developing those infrastructure. So I think government needs to really take sports as something that is a viable alternative for both economic gains, but also for social transformation of its people. Thank you.
Lakisa?
But also, one recommendation is we must restructure the Ministry of Education and Sports. I think there is need to distinguish between those two lines. Making the Ministry of Sports squat under education is doing the sports arena a very big disadvantage.
Okay.
It is already overwhelmed by the responsibilities of education. There is need to independently look at sports as its own ministry or department.
Lakisa?
Well, it's we've talked about talent, identification, and all that. Well, it's one thing to identify talent and nurture it, but what we forget that there's also the bit of maintaining or having a niche for that talent that you've actually identified and tried to nurture. Because we've had in the past, you've seen athletes that disappear in the wind. I mean, they go and make records, but when you look at them, like maybe 5 years down the road, I'll ask about Inzikuru. And I mean, she's nowhere. Now that's where you know that as a country, we actually don't have systems in place. These are resources that we have. If we had, let's say, a board of the Inzikurus, you know, inspiring other women, inspiring other athletes to come on board, I think we would be far as a country. And that's what I talk about. When I talk about identification of talent, now how do you continue in that line as well? And I think if I don't talk about the gender discrimination in sports, I wouldn't really be happy. We've had a lot of this when you look at the national teams. Why is it that the male teams probably get more in terms of financing or money, even when they go to play the same international events?
Yes.
The men are being paid well, and I mean, everyone knows about them. When it comes to the women, it's a disaster. In fact, for most women teams, they usually try to bring them together and develop them towards like a major tournament. After that, it's dispersed, you know? So I think my appeal would also be, or recommendation would be to these organizations or other civil organizations that we have. We've seen the type of investment they've had in political parties, in different fields. How about now they also try to incorporate, let's say, go into the sports. If you're doing gender mainstreaming in these political parties, how about now you go and tap into these different sports federation and see how you can actually nurture and bring more women on board. But all has been said, and I still stand on my point that the development we're looking for as a country is actually hidden in sport. It is a tool for social development, for social change. And for me, I think it's the answer to so many of the problems that we are facing as a country.
Okay, thank you, Lakisa. Finally, Ivan.
Like Comrade Kidega said about, you know, the sports being under the Ministry of Education, I really agree with him. It needs, you know, to stand as, let me say, Ministry of Sports and Leisure. I would strongly, you know, agree with him. I think the government needs to consider that. And then also going forward, yes, like we've said, sport has the ability to change lives. It has the ability to unite a country. Now, what do we do as government, you know, to make sure that these things go forward? Yeah, in most cases, we have young sportsmen, you know, taking on their careers. Let me say boxing, we have boxers, and footballers, but at the end of their careers, you know, they really sink, they really dive, and, you know, it becomes really a tough time ahead, like after. What do we do to combat that? The National Council of Sports maybe should come up with a fund, you know, for all, you know, the sportsmen who have, let me say, represented the country, and the young chaps who cannot continue with school. You teach them, you know, the is it technical? You take them to these technical schools so they learn the hand skills, so that when their careers are done, they can actually fall back to something. Let me say they start up a welding workshop, you know, stuff like that. Other than them literally, you know, abandoning school, and then they take up the career. Yes, they may get the money, but it's usually for the short term. What is the plan B for them? You get? So I think the fund should be also, you know, the government should come up with such a fund that actually helps these veterans, these guys who have made the country proud, so that when their careers come to an end, they actually have somewhere to start from.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Lakisa Mercy. Thank you, Comrade Kidega. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our show for today. We hope to catch you again next week. We hope from this side, always keep the topics changing, but topics that are relevant in different aspects to the young people and to the country. Like I say always, there are very many programs on this show, on this channel that you can watch. There is this Citizens Chat show, there is the community engagement, and many others that you can always tap in and listen to discussions on different subjects happening every week. So we just ask that you always check into this channel, you subscribe, you turn on your notification, and always leave your comment that we can make these shows better for you. Always watch. From me and from the team this side, thank you very much. See you again next week, and we wish you all the best as you go through this week. Thank you.